one camera that I gave a little bit of flack to when it first came out, and that was the Nikon D7500. Now that I really have this in my hands, and of course that's why I always just give my first impressions and talk about something like this, I still do have some flack for this camera, but I also say it's a very good value for the price if you want to buy it. There really aren't a ton of cons to this camera. There's a couple things that do annoy me and that I do wish that they had, and I'll start out with those at first. The one thing is probably the biggest complaint a lot of people had is one single SD card slot. Not even the newer slots, it's the older, slower slot, US SD card slot, but it is what it is. They only gave one, and you're paying, this is about a $1,250 camera, so with that being left out, you were like, why? Like, this was supposed to be a continuation of like the D7000 line, the 7200. This should have been like the newest version, and we didn't get that. So that left a lot of people, you know, questioning. And the other thing is on the bottom, you can't buy a battery grip for this. This has no electronic connections on the bottom. You just have your tripod mount right here, and that's about it. So you don't get that as well. There's nothing made for this. I don't even think there's a lot of third-party stuff out there. If there is, let me know down below. So that's another weird omission. This has 4K video, but the other main problem is, and this has only been improved really on the Nikon D850 that was just announced and has come out, is having no crop in 4K. This unfortunately is a crop sensor camera, so you're already getting the 1.5 times crop with this as well, and then it's like 1.3 times crop in 4K, so you're getting a crop on another crop. And that was the same thing that I had, the same issue I had with the D500 when I was shooting around New York City. And obviously this is kind of, I'd say, a little baby brother to the Nikon D500 to an extent, and this also has the same problem, but it does have 4K. But the video autofocusing, if you like to rely on that stuff for vlogging or just for doing stuff like this, it's Nikon, so it's not the best. I also wanted to show you how the video crops as well. So I went down to the local like little waterfall that we have and just kind of did an example to show you how it crops when you go from the full 1080, the full screen look, to when it then gives you that 1.3 times crop as well. So let's roll that. But there is also a lot to love about this camera. It's a Nikon camera. It's very good for stills. I highly recommend it. It's a very fast camera as well. The cool thing that you get is you do get a tilting touchscreen. It is a full capacity touchscreen, meaning you can go through the menus, turn it on, you know, once again, turn the menus on right here, touch whatever you want to do. It's going to open up, it's going to do whatever you need, and that is amazing. And I do like how they position the buttons on this as well. You have your record button at the top, which some people like or don't like there, but I do like that you have the ISO button up top as well, so that way you can go back from your shutter, hit the ISO, and easily dial that in with the rear shutter dial, instead of having to go to the back left of the camera, which I always felt was kind of a flaw, even though you could move it around. And you are getting a camera that can do 8 frames per second. So once again, this is why I say it's pretty much like a baby brother to the Nikon D500, and you can really... And what that will do right here, if writing to a card, is you'll get 100 JPEGs. So the buffer is actually very good on this. You'll get 100 JPEGs written to the buffer at one time, and you can do up to 50 RAW files as well. And that's pretty massive for something that's moving quick, something just like this. Actually, yeah, that was high, so that was 8 frames per second. The other big thing has to go to the 51-point autofocusing, and it's phase detection as well. So I really enjoy Nikon for the still photography side of things. Once again, they're probably not the best with video, but on the still side of things, they know what they're doing. They're fast cameras, and I'd highly recommend something for this. Now, the other, I guess there is another downside. The dynamic range, highlights, and everything are very good with this camera. They keep up with a lot of Nikon's products out there. The ergonomics are kind of weird with this camera. With the D500, you have a normal kind of grip up front. This one kind of caves in a little bit and gets a little tight, and all depending on what lenses you're using. I was out shooting at a state park, and there were people birding, doing wildlife photography, and I put on one of their lenses just to test something, and it was actually a very tight fit using, I think someone had a 150 to 600 lens on there. So that was very interesting. And what I didn't notice was in here, right here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, there's actually a function button here. I didn't even notice that because it was so hidden. So you do have a couple function buttons throughout the body that you can use. With the minimal cons that I have of this, I do think it's a good value. The one deal breaker for me though, that I really wish they had was a dual SD card slot, and that could have mitigated a lot of complaints, and my main complaint with a camera like this. But it is effectively only $1,250, and if you know, for wildlife, for sports or anything, this is a good camera because it is a crop sensor. You throw a lens on it, you're also getting that crop reach with it as well. So I can definitely see that this 8 frames per second is going to be a huge help for a lot of people out there. If you don't already have like a Nikon D500, or you want a type of backup camera or something like that, this will be a very, very good choice. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I do like the Nikon D7500, and I would recommend it as well. Thanks for BHPhoto for setting that out for review. I've been wanting to test that out, and I've gotten questions on, you know, is this a good camera for street photography? Is it good for, like, what's the best for? And like I said, it's a fast camera for a reason. I mean, it is good to bring around. It's not necessarily a huge camera, but it's not really that quiet. I don't like the grip 100%. Wildlife, sports, your kid's concert or something, or whatever they're doing, it will work out very well. And the ISO range is like, what is it, 100 all the way up to 51,200. You're getting good range there as well if you need a little bit of help to get a little bit more sensitivity. So check into the D7500. It's actually a very good camera, despite a couple little flaws, even though it does have 4K at 30 frames per second, but it's cropped.